The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Live from Boston, Massachusetts, this is Unscheduled with Les Skymo and my sidekick Dave. And I want to thank our troops that's deployed all around the world and their families for their commitment to this country. Also, prayers go out to the 5 Filipino National Guard that got killed today in a plane crash. Pray for them and their family. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We've got a Facebook going here. And I also have Melissa Ackison. She's running for U.S. Senate here in the state of Ohio. And I have endorsed her. So, Melissa, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me on tonight, Les. Guys, my name is Melissa Ackison. I'm the mother of 4 sons, and I live on a small farm in Marysville, Ohio. Between my husband and I, we own a surveying and an engineering company that we started about 12 years ago. And before owning my own businesses, I was in the private sector as a human resources professional. And so I worked all across the United States and worked internationally as well in different manufacturing and distribution environments, really building organizations from the executive level all the way to the line level employee. During that time, I was also a union contract negotiator on behalf of the company and have a very firm grasp on the labor and job market and all of the impacts of fair trade deals and offshoring and nearshoring and outsourcing and quite frankly what happens at the national level that really damages our state's effectiveness, whether it's the need for entitlement and welfare reform, whether it's the need for a complete reform of our trade practices and policies. The president's doing an excellent job with everything that he has been able to achieve in Washington. But I think that he definitely needs some strong individuals around him in the Senate who have the interest of the American people versus the interest in building their own political dynasties. And so I really started and got into the public eye in 2017. I was featured with President Trump and the Vice President on issues related to health care reform. My family had lived through a multitude of issues, and my sister as a result of the failures of the Affordable Care Act. And so that was really the icing on the cake and what kind of pushed me overboard. I think my son had just been shipped off to Kuwait for his first tour. And I finally realized, I did all the right things in life, without being formally educated with a 4-year degree. I went to school. I worked very, very hard. Right after high school, went into the corporate world, worked my way up through multi-billion-dollar organizations, opened my own business, felt the very real effects of ineffectual government policy, and realized that I wasn't just good enough to raise my kids to fight this country's wars, but I was actually good enough to run for office and to legislate for my family as well. So that's really how this whole campaign started.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for being the mother of our serviceman, and God bless him, and we'll pray the Lord watches over him. Melissa, now I heard you mention entitlements, and now I know that is a big part of our deficit. Health care is like 28%, pensions are like 25%. Also, though, now it's a small, welfare is like 9%. But also, I have a problem with the size of the government, Melissa. Without counting the military, there's over 2 million employees in our federal government. And when you put the members of the NSA, CIA, FBI, the president's staff, our military, when you add all of them up, it's over 4 million members of our federal government. And, around our kitchen table, if we can save $1, $2, $5, that's money that we didn't spend. And I hear from these politicians everything but cutting the size of government. And,
Yeah.
Our government is, wasn't originally intended to be what it's doing today. It's bloated. Have you given any thought to that?
Oh, of course I have. I mean, I was a small business owner. I'm lived through the effects of bloated government. I mean, let's just talk about to be in business and to have employees, the multitude of organizations I'm paying just to run a payroll. Let's forget about the operating costs and let's look at the federal tax, state taxes, the local taxes, taxes of the townships, every place that I'm doing business, paying taxes on all of those, my payroll taxes that I run, workers' compensation, unemployment pay. I mean, every single day I have to make decisions about what contracts I can take, what I'm going to do with my employees, how large my company can grow, because every time I turn around, I'm into a new category where I'm up against more regulation. And, for those of us who are paying close attention, we see that we are really in a stage right now through the socialization in terms of policy. The government came in to take over our health care. We know that the Affordable Care Act had as much to do with affordable health care coverage as Planned Parenthood has to do with planning for parenthood.
Right, yeah.
It's a farce and it's a scam, and it's perpetuated from the federal government. And it seems to me, that we have all of these government institutions, but it's never, there are no streamlined processes. So you just have government on top of more administration, and, we have grown to the stage where every resolution or every result includes opening another division of government and staffing it with government employees. And so, yeah, of course these are things that I'm looking at, but we're drilling down to things at the federal level. It's not as though we don't have people in the House who haven't presented appropriate bills to address much of what we are talking about. It's about having the right people in the Senate who will actually shepherd the legislation along. And that's not happening right now. And the president doesn't even have all of his key cabinet members confirmed. We're in a time where people are playing political games, and unfortunately, it's at the expense of the American people, the American worker, and those of us who are trying to do the right thing. And all the while, they're preserving their political dynasties that they've built over the years. There's no bipartisan resolve. It's about division and distraction, and everybody else gets to remain in power.
Well, Melissa, as I look back on Barack Obama, which I still think was born in Kenya, and the Clintons, there have been people in recent history that has opportunities to be great people and do great things for America. So now we have a man, President Donald Trump, that I feel like he's one of us. And now we have that man that wants to do great things, and we've got the Never Trump Republicans. We've got the Democratic Party, which is nothing but a bunch of socialists. This is our time. This is our, these people need to wake up and realize this is our opportunity to restore some of the actual constitutional rights and some of our God-given rights back to us.
Yeah, and unfortunately, until you start electing a statesman, or in my case, a stateswoman, to go to Washington, who's really lived through the field policy and has that emotional connection to the people, you're not going to see any change or any result, because the people at that level are so far removed from what it's like to be me and what it's like to be you that they would have no idea how it feels. The desperation that the Ohio worker feels, or that the average American feels. The frustration of feeling like you're constantly having your neck stepped on. So they don't understand what that looks like. And until we get people in office and we handle the republic in a way that it was supposed to be designed, we will never be able to get past where we are. And thank God for President Trump, because he opened up the populist movement for people to start believing in themselves again to be able to run for positions like this. I mean, look how difficult this is. You're talking about me, a mom of 4 kids between my husband and I, kid in the military, hardworking people, grew up in the city. We live in the country now on a small farm. Really did all the right things as described by, being a good American, all of those things. And it's not paying dividends. It's not paying off for the American people. And people are worn down. They're tired. They're frustrated. They're depressed. They thought President Trump being in office would mean meaningful legislation and movement of bills. But then people have, they got the rude awakening to establishment politics. If only we had the House, if only we had the Senate, if only we had a Republican president, yet we have all those things, but we have weak politicians who won't go to bat and stand up for the people. And that's really what we have to be able to change, really fearless leaders.
Yeah, well, I'm so disappointed in Jeff Sessions, and I would bet that you would probably agree with me on that. He's just sweeping stuff under the rug. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope he comes out and does the right thing with these past criminals in government. But would you consider yourself constitutionalist, Melissa?
And in fact, when people ask me, how do you describe yourself? I say, number one, I'm a Christian, I'm an American, I'm a constitutionalist, and I'm actually rated the most conservative, endorsed by Ohio value voters, endorsed by all the conservative groups in Ohio. And it's because I'm not willing to make compromises on certain moral grounds and things that need to be stood up for. And so you have to remember, the Republican establishment, they've already found their prince that they want to send to war with Sherrod Brown. The problem is he will not be able to inspire the base. He will not be able to gain the necessary Democratic crossover vote, the independent vote. That doesn't resonate real well with the working man and woman to say, hey, I'm worth $40 or $70 million, and I love President Trump. You're not President Trump, Jim Renacci. You will never be President Trump. You are not Donald Trump Jr. There is a Donald Trump Jr. His name is Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah.
Those are the things that people are sick and tired of. The establishment got involved in this race. They began to fund and prop up candidates. And people are looking for inspiration. People are looking for leadership. And it's not going to come in the form of Jim Renacci to unseat Senator Brown, because Senator Brown's popularity rate, it's very high. And it's higher than where Jim Renacci's is. And you've got to have something that the world has never seen before to go toe-to-toe with Brown and say, Senator Brown, I've lived under your failed policies. I would be his worst nightmare coming for him.
I really believe that. Melissa, let me ask you this. Are you familiar, or do you know about the Corporation Act of 1871?
No, I'm not.
Would you take a pencil and jot that down, and when you get time, Google that, please. And I believe you will be shocked to know what happened in 1871. It's the Corporation Act of 1871.
I will definitely look that up. I spend a lot of time with the Tea Party groups, and they bring me, figures and information on a pretty consistent basis of things that are going on behind the scenes that most people probably aren't paying close attention to. So I will definitely look at that.
I wish you would. It would be an education for you, Melissa. My man here, Dave, he's got a question for you.
Hi, Melissa.
Sure.
This is David.
Hi.
I'd like to ask you about, it's great to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you about foreign policy. What's your view on the JCPOA? Should we stay in or should we get out?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know enough about the details and the specifics to be able to answer that question. There are certain things when it comes to foreign policy that I feel very well versed and comfortable in answering, and there are other things that if I don't know enough about the subject matter, I will simply say, because I'm not a politician, I'll say, I'm not comfortable on giving any firm answers on that.
As far as your support for Israel, are you supportive of Israel and their policies?
I'm 100% supportive of Israel. I absolutely believe that we need to make the changes that have been committed through multiple administrations in terms of the embassy and where it should be located, where the capital of Israel is. Israel is our ally, and that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, we got you on that. They're going to be moving the embassy probably about a week or two. And are you for that, moving to Jerusalem, the embassy from Tel Aviv?
Absolutely.
As far as term limits go, are you for or against term limits?
I'm for term limits, and in fact, I've already signed the term limit agreement. I'm not sure how anybody would want to continue serving term after term, especially those that have been so ineffectual for so many years, and I'm not sure how they continue to get reelected. I have signed and committed to a term agreement. I don't know. I mean, a 6-year term in the Senate, you should be able to accomplish more than enough if your negotiation skills are on point to be able to get some meaningful work done.
You know, what's amazing to me is that these politicians that have been in politics for life, making approximately $200,000 a year, end up to be multimillionaires. I just wonder how they do that.
I think you know how they do it. The rules don't apply to them. I mean, let's look at what's going on right now in our country. You and I both know that if we would have done half of the things that we have to watch pay out at the taxpayers' dime on C-SPAN through different hearings, if this were you or if it were me, we would be in jail, and you know this.
Oh yeah.
I think that there's a different set of rules, clearly, and I think that there's a very real intent behind making it so difficult for people to run for office. I mean, look at the life that I've led for the last 8 or 9 months. You're talking about, this is my life in comparison to the establishment candidate, okay? So I'm a middle-class mom, small business owner. I'm not a wealthy woman. So for me to be able to obtain the funding necessary to do what it is that I have done, I've had to rely on a vision and my voice, and nothing more to be able to cover myself across the state of Ohio, like 88 counties. Now, that's the way that real politics should work. It should be at the grassroots level. You should be going to every county, shaking hands, meeting people, talking about what's particular for the state of Ohio, what your intentions are. But that's not the way that it works. When you're an establishment candidate, you don't even have to campaign. You have millions of dollars behind you, and the only thing that's focused on is flooding the airwaves and flooding television sets with ads. Because most people have removed themselves from the political process to the point that they are relying on whatever it is that they see on TV or whatever it is that they hear on the radio. So for me to do this, I literally had to walk away. I have a 1-year-old at home, and I have an 8-year-old at home. My husband has had to take care of the children day in and day out for 9 months. I'm on the campaign trail 7 days a week. I do my best to be home Sundays for church during the morning. If not, I try to make an evening service, and that's what my life has looked like every day. There's not a lot of people that would do something like this. I mean, you are rejected, you're made fun of, you're told you would never be able to do this. Yet here we are today with coalitions built all across the state of Ohio. We have funded our own commercial media ad strategies solely through the Ohio Voter. We have been able to fund our radio ad strategy, and we have been very, very analytics driven for every major media outlet that we've purchased. But we've done this with very true intention. We knew exactly what we were doing. We had internal polling the entire time that I ran for office. We were never in a position to where we constantly posted polls to show where we were, because quite frankly, if you are strategic, you want your opponents to believe that they can get fat, happy, and comfortable, so to speak, so that they don't know which way you're coming or what it is that you're up to next. The only thing that they knew is that they were seeing me out and about on the campaign trails, sometimes at the national level on different shows, sometimes at the local level. I don't think they ever expected this woman to be able to pull off what we're pulling off right now in this U.S. primary race. But who's really going to make this kind of effort in today's political climate, knowing what you're up against, unless you truly have a desire to preserve the republic?
I agree with that. One last question. I believe that we have a two-tier justice system in this country. The thing that I think a lot of people are upset about, and I know I'm one of them, is that Hillary Clinton got away with multiple crimes, and she's not having to pay the piper. The statute of limitations has run out on some of the things that she's done, and I just wonder if you were elected as a U.S. Senator, would you be in favor of prosecuting these people that are getting away with murder?
Well, absolutely, because keep in mind, some of those things, I mean, if we want to go with Benghazi, and I'm sure you've watched all the hearings and you've watched the Jim Jordans of the world, question her, and I think at the end of the day, what people are forgetting are those were American lives. That was somebody's husband, someone's son, people's children, at the hands of neglect leadership that came directly from her. And yet that was just, one of the things that she was involved with. Admittedly destroying documents. You and I, there's a whole different level of
I'd be in jail.
Justice system for people like us. And I think that's really what resonates. It's interesting because I spend a lot of time in communities that traditionally would never touch a Republican candidate. But there's one thing that we can all agree to. We are in a position in our country right now to where there are the very elite who rule over us, and the rules seem not to apply, and then there's the rest of us, kind of the everyday, average Joes who we're on pins and needles making sure we're playing by the rules and dotting the I's and crossing our T's because we know what would be coming for us if those kind of allegations were laid at our doorstep. And I think that's one thing we can agree on. And I have a really strong bipartisan support in communities that normally don't like Republican candidates because we're recognizing that this has very little to do anymore with Democrat or even Republican. This has everything to do with establishment politics and who the rules apply to and who they don't. And we're in a revolutionary time right now in our country. Keep in mind, the average voter believed that getting Donald Trump elected into office was going to kind of be the end-all, be-all. But then they had the rude wake-up call to legislators and the amount of control that they actually had behind putting teeth behind actually getting things done. And that's when I think people became very alert, very aware of what was happening in our country and paying very close attention. I mean, I tracked nearly every bill that hits the floor, who co-sponsors it, what committee it's in, what subcommittee. This is not a matter of people not working and presenting appropriate bills. It's a matter of people who have the desire to actually help us and do something. There's no desire there.
All right. Well, thank you, Melissa. I'm having my sister monitor my Facebook. I got half of my family over here, so you've got at least 4 votes sitting right here. What's your question? You got time for a question off of Facebook?
Sure.
All right, let's see. How she can serve us better than Gibbons or Renacci?
Well, that's a great question, and that's a combination. And I'll tell you this, the primary season is probably the most critical piece of the election process. It is like the NFL draft. And during this time, just like the draft, you would be looking at a candidate based on a multitude of things. It's not just about what you say that you want to do. It's about demonstrating what you can do. And during this primary season, there is no doubt that my commitment was with the Ohio voter. You saw me out and about every day, every event that I could be at, working tirelessly. And I think people even saw physically, the toll that it takes on a candidate. But I knew that it was important for the voter at multiple levels to see how I was in different scenarios. So much to the point that even though Mr. Renacci and even though Mr. Gibbons committed multiple times for a debate, I was the only person who actually showed up and made good on my word. We had multiple times where we were invited to debates, and I agreed with no conditions. The moderator would always say, well, what are your conditions? I would say, I don't have any conditions. I'm going to show up. If someone asks a question that I can't answer, I have to be honest and tell them I can't answer the question, but I don't need conditions to show up because I wanted the voter to see what we all looked like in positions of pressure, because that's what's going to be happening on the Senate floor. That's what's going to be happening when we have to negotiate on behalf of our people. And it was very disturbing to me multiple times in different debates that were set up. Everybody refused. First, it was Jim Renacci that was, I will debate anytime, anywhere when he was in the gubernatorial race. Well, guess what happened? When he started polling extremely low, his reason was, well, I was asked to get into the U.S. Senate race. Well, you never would have been selected to be the governor anyway. Let's be honest. You had Mike Gibbons who committed, anytime, anywhere, I will debate and we can talk about conservative policy. But when it comes time to go toe-to-toe, you see the difference between the people who are talking smack versus the people that are willing to actually throw down, so to speak. And it was highly disturbing to me that these gentlemen were not able to publicly articulate their positions. As an example, Mike Gibbons will tell you that he's the Trump guy and he loves President Trump. If that were the case, why on so many interviews, as recent as last week, did he have a difficult time saying that he supported President Trump in his decisions? Why did he give to the super PAC generously $10,000 when he was supporting John Kasich during Kasich's presidential bid? Why was he openly supportive of Jimmy Carter's son, giving him financial support when he was running his Democratic race to be governor? Those are the types of questions I asked Mike Gibbons one night on a debate stage. And it wasn't a debate stage, it was an event. And he became so hot and sweaty and lathered up and could not even answer. Here I am, I'm a fellow Republican. He could not answer those questions. And I thought, with all due respect, Mr. Gibbons, if you can't answer the questions of a fellow Republican, legitimate questions, in the room of people without getting mad, he was pointing his finger, he was sweating. If that was enough to set him in a tirade, there is no way that he would be able to serve us in that capacity in the Senate. Mr. Renacci has a more liberal voting record than John McCain and Mitch McConnell. That's not okay for me. I'm a conservative, rated as the most conservative. That is not what I want representing me. And if you can't do basic things like debate between all primary opponents and you're constantly coming up with an excuse after you've committed time and time again to do it, you don't deserve the public's vote, because that was their time to see how you would handle yourself under pressure, and they failed.
Well, you know, I met Jim Renacci, and I wasn't impressed at all. And I met just a small group, maybe 15, 20 people, and I asked him about the size of government, and he just blew me off. I wrote you about it, and, you know, he wasn't concerned about the size of the federal government. He was concerned about the entitlements. You know, now, that's kind of offensive to some people, you know, but I know that's a term that is common to some of the things up there, but, you know, the people that pay into their Social Security, they're offended by that.
Yeah, but that's not an entitlement. Social Security isn't an entitlement. Yeah, that is something that people pay into.
Or your military pension. You know, people's earned them things, you know.
And, that's not an entitlement. Entitlements, as an example, and I tell this story, it's a deeply personal story, but you have to really expose yourself so people get where you're coming from.
Right.
But to answer the first question, before we close out of that, what I'm going to tell you is this. Senator Brown, whether you guys like it or not, or whether anybody likes it or not, his popularity rating is still very high. It's over the 50th percentile mark. Now, who do you think will best resonate with the Democratic voter or those who would consider a Republican candidate? Will it be the gentlemen who are worth, one of them, his net worth is $100 million, and that's all that he has to tout himself with? They have spent millions of dollars on their campaigns, campaign managers, speech writers, marketing materials, fancy jargon, nice outfits for everybody to wear, huge amounts of staff to follow them around and laugh at their jokes. You know, do you believe that people are going to really buy what they're selling, which is, I care about you. I understand what it's like to be you. I'm going to fight for you. If it costs that much money to produce a product that I'm already giving to you naturally, just giving you my heart, giving you, you know, what I have to bring to the table, you know, we're still human at the end of the day, and we can see through the BS. All the millions in the world will not produce a candidate that can resonate with the communities that are desperately suffering and need conservative, fiscal, responsible leadership. I have never made any bones or never had any shame for the fact that Christ is guiding all of my directions. I'm a very prayerful woman. That doesn't mean that I am a perfect person, but it means I understand who I should be relying on to get me from point A to point B. And it's not man's intervention. It's something much bigger than that.
Absolutely.
I don't think that those are the motivating factors behind Jim Renacci and Mike Gibbons. I'll never forget the time Mike Gibbons called me and he said, you know, I'm worth $100 million. And I mean, these are terms I don't even get. He says, I'm worth $100 million. He says, I have more money in my checking account than Josh Mandel has in his war chest. And I said, wow, that's really good for you. And he says, but there's just days that I feel like I'm not good enough. I can only imagine what it feels like to be you. And I said, it feels pretty great to be me. I love the fact that I can go out and that I can expose who I am, and people are still willing to follow the message. So I don't think Mike Gibbons, I watched him treat a room full of Democrats at a bipartisan event like idiots for asking questions the other night, and to the point that I had to apologize to people there. If that's how he talks to constituents, that's not somebody I want servicing me, my family. I don't care what political background you're at.
Well, Melissa, that's what happens when you become a career politician. You get so arrogant, and the power just blinds you, and you get so full of resentment for people that's not exactly like you, and one thing, I'll be honest with you, one thing that really attracted me to you was that you done everything that you've done without a $200,000, $300,000 college degree. And that speaks volumes to me. You see kids with all this college debt, loans from the government, which they shouldn't even be getting, working at McDonald's with these worthless degrees.
Yeah, and again, I can give another example with Mike Gibbons. You have to understand, when I talk about things like school choice and I talk about the importance of homeschooling, it's not just to escape the radicalization that's happening in public school institutions. It's because my senior year of high school, I needed 2 credits to graduate, and I had a teacher willing to work on a homeschooling alternative with me that still allowed me to graduate from my high school, but I was able to work 40 hours a week at 17 and a half. And I worked for a huge corporate, it was a large multi-billion-dollar organization, and that's how I got my start in human resources. I bought my first house when I was 19 years old, saving up my money, working my jobs. I wasn't the nicest house, but it was a house, and I owned it, and I was proud of it. So all my friends were going to college, and they were incurring radical amounts of debt, and they were becoming radicalized and becoming people I didn't know.
Yes.
I was really proud to be that hard-working lady from the west side of Columbus. And I remember Mike Gibbons was telling people, well, she'll never be taken seriously in the Senate. She doesn't even have a college degree. And I thought, it's interesting because I've had multiple jobs and worked my way up to increasing levels of responsibility and then opened my own business without a college degree. I think there's probably nothing more impressive than someone who's willing to fight and take on different responsibilities, work their way up through an organization. And not everybody was born with a silver spoon in their mouth, but there are very intelligent people out there who chose to pursue, whether it was vocational programs or like my dad, who was a UAW factory worker. He pursued an apprenticeship program. He was in a union. He was still a Republican, but he was a very smart guy. Not a college degree is not for everyone, and the debt that comes along with it. And I think that's probably why so many people do respect me on the campaign trail, especially those who are for school choice and homeschooling. They understand that I get the importance of those types of programs, vocational schools. And those are huge agenda items on President Trump's agenda. Who better than someone who's actually pursued these pathways to talk about them?
Oh, yeah. Now, to me, that's Americana right there, to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, put your nose to the grindstone, and, go get it. Nobody owes you nothing. And, and my dad had an 8th grade education. He was a Marine, but I don't think there wasn't much that man couldn't do. He was brilliant, but school wasn't his thing. He quit school, lied about his age, and went in the Marine Corps. So, but, I would like to see a return of the trade schools. When I graduated high school, we had a vocational school, electronics. We had an automotive shop. We had woodworking.
My husband pursued auto shop. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I show 66 Cadillac. You know that, right?
Do what?
I show a 1966 Cadillac DeVille.
Is that right?
It's beautiful. I'll bring it out and put it on Facebook.
Oh, my. We used to have
it's getting nice.
we used to have I think that was a 65, but now it was an old funeral car. But hey, you know, we was big time back then. So,
yeah.
but Melissa, I sure appreciate your time. You went a lot longer than 10 minutes. But you know, I think you'll make an awesome candidate. And I was talking to Dave here about the meaning of the word law. And, you know, used to, our founding fathers, they used the law to protect the people. And the Constitution, it was to limit the government. And things has flipped around so much to where the law is a mechanism now that is a threat to the people. It's to embezzle their wealth and to hold them hostage to all the rules and the regulations, the ordinances, all the things that we have to abide by. I mean, I feel like a prisoner in my own country in a lot of ways, Melissa, you know, and, you know, like I say, this system makes it hard for a person to live like a constitutionalist. You can't live that way. You can't live that way. The law won't allow you.
Here's a story that, and again, I think this probably comes with being able to resonate with people. You have to expose yourself and talk about your life experiences, but I think probably the lowest that I really felt was the year we had a client that filed bankruptcy who was, you know, a client of ours. And that happens. You know, you have to liquidate assets and get ready for personal belongings to make payroll. That's what the real world looks like for the small business. There's no bailout.
Yes.
And so I remember that year calling in to the Affordable Care Act. Now, keep in mind, I live with a very rare disease. It's called fibrous dysplasia. And I was diagnosed at 14 years old, and it really wrecked the left side of my face. In fact, some people can tell my eyes a little bit lazy. My face because then so the disease that was very difficult to live with as a young.
I lost you, Melissa. Oh, she called back. I don't know, I lost her. I hope you on Facebook can hear that. Can you hear that? Somebody send me a message if you can hear it. Melissa, call me back. Please. That was a good conversation, Dave.
I think we lost her.
I don't think I could call her back. But anyway, could they hear on there, Nance? Could somebody answer me and see? I know you probably had to strain to hear her. Could you hear on the radio?
It's kind of hard. It was better online.
Yeah. Well, I need a better phone, boys and girls. It's just old flip phone. Melissa, give me a call. I did give her my personal number, too, so if anything went wrong. But we'll wait. I think she might have been driving because she's fading in and out or riding, maybe. But, Dave, you know, she hit on a lot of things, brother, and like I told her, what really impressed me, I got to get a drink of water from finding my bottle of water, was that she's a self-made woman. And, you know, she struggled graduating high school. She worked a full-time job, bought her own house at 19, never depended on nobody she never waited around for no handouts. She was a real go-getter, and she went and got her. There we go. Yes, unscheduled. Let's sky mow. Is this Melissa? Oh, well, that's okay. You was in midstream about your disease. Go ahead.
All right. So anyway, as I said, so this was something I was diagnosed with at 14, and you know what my parents thought was just going to be this, perhaps an infection that was swelling my face up, ended up being something really serious. And the doctors told my mom and my dad the Mayo Clinic was involved in the James Cancer Clinic at Ohio State. It wasn't cancer, but it was a disease that involved multiple tumors. But they told my dad, she's going to have a really hard life and things are going to be very difficult for her. So in essence, I'm sitting in the room listening to doctors tell me that I'm not going to amount to a whole lot. And when we walked, almost like I was not able to comprehend. And when we walked out that day, my dad said, hey, and this is a dad. He has 3 girls. He was a really proud man. And his eyes are all teared up, and he says, you know what? I know that's not what we were expecting to hear today, but nobody authors the story for you except for you and the man upstairs. And don't ever forget that. Not the doctors, not anybody, just you and God.
Yes.
And I knew that day that I was going to have problems throughout life, which I did. I had over 22 major, reconstructive surgeries to my face and brain fluid leaks and issues and, spent a lot of time in the hospital as a kid. But I knew that day that what my dad said was right. Nobody is the author of the story except for God. And so I wish more people would think like that and that they wouldn't have so much self-doubt because they could be so much more than they're allowing themselves to be. And the lowest part from a government standpoint for me was the years that my business was doing really well. I had done all the right things, and I'm now thrown into these systems where I can't take care of myself. I'm working hard, I'm paying tons of taxes, and all of a sudden I'm being offered only government insurance. The free market, my free thinking had been taken away. And Ohio had one of the richest insurance markets, even with my disease. And I worked in human resources prior to that, so I negotiated corporate contracts, and I knew what the insurance markets looked like before Obamacare. So you fast forward to Obamacare, and suddenly all of these rare disease doctors that I needed, they're not around anymore.
Right.
And this is not a disease that could just be managed by anyone. But what the kicker really was my son has a rare condition that also needed treatment. And the major doctors that he needed were not able to treat him. And by the time that I had lived through all of these failures, the year we had a client file bankruptcy, we literally had a break-even year. Well, according to Obamacare standards and parameters, that made me Medicaid eligible. And I thought, but I'm not poor and destitute. That's what Medicaid is for. It's to take care of the truly most handicapped and vulnerable. And yes, I have a disease and my child has a condition, but certainly this isn't, I want to buy my insurance. By this time, there is no free market insurance to purchase anymore. You cannot buy anything through the ACA because it's all capped based on income. Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, my family and I are sitting in a job and family services office, very proud people, with a caseworker, and we're being signed up for Medicaid. And then shortly after that, the White House heard about our story and we were invited there to kind of talk about it. But the sad thing is this was happening to hundreds of thousands of people across the United States.
Yes.
So when you hear about those buckling Medicaid systems, the reason is there's no personal responsibility, there's no prescription cost. People get so entrenched in those systems and they realize, hey, it's a better economic opportunity for me to stay entrenched into Medicaid than it is for me to get out of it because I have no choice but a $15,000 deductible and insurance where nobody will take care of me. So from the very beginning, in its inception, the Affordable Care Act was written in a way for dependency, period. It was part of a socialist plan, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
And
to
live through it, though, the embarrassment of living through it, and, I didn't just stop fighting, and I didn't just stop there and go, oh, well, that was just something bad that happened to me. I knew the difference between right and wrong, and I had to translate my story into a message of the American people who are doing the right things are really, things aren't panning out real well for them. And living through what I have, I don't think a Jim Renacci or a Mike Gibbons could ever understand what that feels like, to have a concentrated effort to do something. Because when I came back from Washington, I met with the governor's administration. This was as a private citizen. And I had my husband with me and I had my infant with me, and they admitted that they knew the federal policy had created these institutions of entitlements and the need for reform, but that nothing could be done until it was at the federal level. So that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me and really made me think, how much longer are we going to allow our resources to be depleted and the capabilities of our people to be stifled under the way the government structure is? And so that's where I started getting very serious about the race.
Yeah, well, and another thing too is you couldn't buy health care across state lines, and which if you want competition, that's the way you do it. Look how cheap car insurance got when they started doing that. But our government and the law, it works against us, Melissa. It don't work to protect us like it was intended to do. It works against us to milk us out of everything it can get out of us, and it's not the way it should be.
No, it was one of the worst years of my adult life, and it was so embarrassing, because that it's not your fault, but the government's programs have put you in this situation, and you're thinking to yourself, what do I do? What do I do? I've got a kid that has a disease, but I know what Medicaid is for, and it's for those who can't help themselves. But what do you? And I mean, there was a man that I told my story one night. It was, this amongst a host of other stories about, crippling policy, and he started crying, and it was one of the very first speeches that I gave, and I thought, oh my gosh, was it maybe the story about, when I was talking about welfare entitlement reform or necessary? And he walked up to me afterwards and he said, I had to do the same thing that you did. And this was a very proud man. He said, take his family to a welfare office. And he said, I was so ashamed, but I had no way to take care of them. And I kept thinking, well, I just won't take insurance. Well, no, if I do that, then I'm going to get a fine. He said, I really felt like I was forced to be something I didn't want to be, and it made me sick.
Right. Well, I really believe you've lived it. And you know what you're talking about. You've been through it. Now, see, me and Dave, you're talking about Christ and talking about God. The bottom line to this show, Melissa, is it's a conservative look at life through the eyes of a constitutional Christian. And Dave and I are both Christians. I'm an ordained minister. And but we know God is God's an awesome God. He's a miracle working God, and if we will just put all of our faith in Him, things it works out if we'll do our part.
I agree with you, and I think that's what people are forgetting. I don't think God's hand was in the president's election. There's a book called The New American Revolution, and my family's story is featured in that book. And I remember, this was before I even ran for the Senate. It talked about how I never gave up hope, and how sometimes God brings you a vessel and a message in something that He brings a message and a messenger in a vessel that you least expect. Yes. And in this particular case, I think it was President Trump. And a lot of people are like, do you know how ridiculous that sounds? And I said, it may sound that way to you, but you don't understand the way the Lord's hand works. Yes. If you understood it, you wouldn't question it.
Right. To some people, I know that to some Christians, President Trump may not be the ideal example of an altar boy, but I know I've seen it. He has a heart that God can deal with and God can work with. That's pretty obvious to me,
Oh, yeah. And the worst thing that we do, and I try to remind people in the faith of this all the time, because all that we are is sinners saved by grace and blood of the Lamb, and salvation and sanctification. I don't think people understand that. And I have to remind them, if you want to extend the hand of Christ to anybody, you can't do that by a constant state of being nasty. There's certainly judgment to be had, but don't you believe that you would be better suited in serving as a witness to share the word with somebody instead of to be so judgmental? And so I think we have a lot of work to do to bring truth to light and to help people. But it can be done. Look at what we were like before we were saved.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. I know you weren't.
Oh, but for sure. Yeah, I got too many skeletons in my closet to run for office. I wouldn't make it out of the city. Dave, you got any more questions for Melissa?
Yeah, I was just wondering, getting back to foreign policy again, should should if the Korean peace thing fails, what should be done with Korea? Should we just back off and let them become a nuclear power and stay that way, or should we?
No.
Or should we attack them?
I don't. I'll be honest with you. I mean, obviously, sanctions. There are always things that you can do, along with allies, to develop sanctions against Korea. And I think that they were feeling the heat, and they knew that the president was not going to stand for business as usual. I truly do believe that we will see a time of peace and that we will see a time of harmony. And I don't think that's just being optimistic. It's just a feeling that I have. We certainly have some time to wait before this happens. I think that there is a willingness. Now, we know that there are a lot of human rights issues and issues of the humanitarian nature that need to be addressed over there. We know that. But in terms of denuclearization, I do believe that we're going to see those things happen. I do.
Yeah, I agree too. I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead. But, I remember when Kim Jong-un's sister and a representative from North Korea went to the Olympics. And I can't help but to think, now I give Donald Trump all the credit. But she's the only one that's kin to him that he ain't killed. I think that maybe when she got back home, she tasted a little bit of freedom there, Dave. And I just wonder if they seem to be really close. And I just wonder if maybe she kind of nudged that along a little bit.
I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are praying for peace. I tend to think maybe there was different levels of intervention that happened to get us to where we are today. I'm still prayerfully hopeful that between the president's posturing and what he has done so far, that we'll see some meaningful reforms. So, we continue to hope for that.
Well, it was definitely divine intervention. There's no doubt the Lord had a hand in that.
Getting involved. Speaking of nuclear weapons and the Koreans having the nukes, a lot of people think that the Iranians already have a nuclear weapon. And if that's the case, I heard, this startled me when I heard this. I know how much the Iranians hate the Israelis, and they threaten them all the time and call them the little Satan, and we're the big Satan. The United States is the big Satan. And, they're continuing to test their ballistic missiles all the time. And I was wondering, what do you think about the fact that many people in the intelligence community think that if the Iranians got a nuclear weapon, the first target would be the Saudis?
Well, Dave, I'll be honest with you. We really cowered down to the Iranians, and you know that, under the last administration. And, I have not heard any official intelligence reports that have come out that says any of what you just said. I don't know where this information is coming from. Was there something that came out in recent days of this?
Well, I've heard
intelligence officials.
I heard this. Well, it's been a couple months ago and it startled me when I heard it, because I thought, well, they'd attack the Israelis, but the Israelis have nukes themselves, and they wouldn't fare very well if they attacked the Israelis. But the Saudis are defenseless, and the Persians, they speak Farsi. They're not Arabs, and they've never liked each other. They're a different branch of Islam. They are Shia Islam, and the Sunni Islam is Saudi Arabia, and that's where Mecca is located, the birthplace of Islam with Muhammad. So this brings up the whole question: is this could be proliferation, because if it doesn't work out with the JCPOA coming to fruition, then what's going to happen is the Saudis are going to get a nuke, and they're going to buy them off of the Pakistanis, because the Pakistanis are Sunni Muslims. So I think we're in for a world of trouble in that part of the country. The world.
What's that say, Dave?
What'd you say, Les?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm trying to see my time here.
Yeah, just.
What's that say? 1 minute? What's that say, Dave?
I can't read it. Let me read it.
think we're about to run out of time here, Melissa.
Well, Les, I had fun. I told my son it was going to be 10 minutes because he thought he was going to stay up a little later, and he ended up getting his way as it stands because we got into such a detailed chat.
Yeah, there's 1 minute down at the end. Well, Melissa, I thank you so much. And, I know she supports the Second Amendment. She's a deer hunter. Thank you so much, Melissa.
You know that I said the only candidate who has deer stands on his property and has concealed carry and has been involved with his initiatives for many, many years.
Yeah, I heard you was a deer hunter, and I appreciate that. And but we're going to have to sign off here, Melissa. About ready to close the show. Thank you so much, and I'll be in touch. And you've got my vote. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Melissa. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
All right, it says 1 minute, Dave. So, but,
We got 10 seconds.
okay, all right. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. And this is Lesson Dave. And we're signing off here. Thank you.